and I wanted to welcome you to HiFi Chats Volume 4. Today we have David Solomon, who is Chief High-Res Music Evangelist at Qobuz. How are you, David?
I'm doing great, Alan. How are you doing, buddy?
Doing great. Cool background, dude.
Hey, man, thanks. I got a ton of them. Like, I'm here to show love too.
Awesome. Hey, look at you. What a man. Hey, so I wanted to just ask everybody to like and follow. You'll see some areas on your screen that you can do so. We'll have a few links out there for some playlists and that kind of thing as we go as well. And also, if you go to hifibuys.com and sign up for our newsletter, that'll basically keep you in touch with what we're doing in the future and that kind of thing. Last week, we had Bill McKeegan on HiFi Chats with Dan D'Agostino, Master Audio Systems. It was actually a great discussion, learned a lot as well, and actually had a gentleman buy an amplifier from that as well. And so you end up finding next week we have Mike Latvis. He's actually with HRS, Harmonic Resolution Systems. That's without a doubt the finest of all audio shelving systems that you can find out there. Very, very intelligent guy, and it should be an amazing conversation. So I really look forward to that. Today also, we are going to be giving away 6 months of Qobuz, courtesy of Mr. Solomon and Qobuz. And that was a really nice thing for you guys to do. So we'll have a way for you to sign up. On the bottom, there'll be a feedback form to enter for the prizes. He's also got about 4 pins, and we're also, my guys like to have fun with me. So we made a playlist called Funky Al's House of Sweet Jams. So then we came up with jams. So we have them here. They are Eat a Peach, Purple Haze, Strawberry Fields, and Raspberry Beret, which I actually heard on TV the other night. It was really awesome, doing Prince's tribute. So anyway, we're also going to give away 2 or 3 bottles of jam. So anyway, please register in the feedback form, and that way we can get a hold of you. We will announce the winner of the 6 months of Qobuz at the end of the show. So and we also will do a Q&A at the end. So David, with that, you ready to go?
Sure, buddy.
All right. So you know, we appreciate so much Qobuz's support in the store and what Qobuz has been doing out there, all the streaming services, but most especially you. We've seen just a tremendous amount of outreach by you. I am actually on your Streaming Music Matters and Qobuz fan club, and would recommend anybody getting out there and clicking the like on that and following it on Facebook. It's actually pretty amazing. You share some cool stuff out there. But anyway, what we're going to do today is we're going to learn a little bit about David and some of the stuff we don't know, maybe, and some things you know that we get into the music and that kind of thing, and also how he got on with Qobuz, maybe a little bit about who his mentors were during his days as well, getting where he is. So David, tell us a little bit about you, family, where you grew up.
Me and 4 other people grew up in Atlanta. I was actually a Grady baby, so I've been here my whole life.
Oh, that's awesome.
This was before Grady was a crack hotel, right? Or
okay, awesome. So you got kids?
I've got 4 kids. They're all lovely and near and dear to my heart, and music lovers, everyone.
I have seen that. I know you celebrated a pretty lengthy anniversary as of recent, and so anyway, congratulations to you on that as well. So tell us about some of your hobbies.
My hobbies include, well, first off, my vocation is my advocation. So one of my biggest hobbies is music. I love it. So I feel super fortunate to have been in the audio industry my whole life. Outside that, I'm a musician. I play drums, or at least I'm a guy who hangs out with musicians. Total hack guitarist, but I've been playing for 40 years, so I could make you think I could play if you didn't really know what you were doing. Do a lot of kayaking outside, doing a lot of hiking and camping with my family. So we, it's pretty diverse life, and we get out as much as possible. But Qobuz takes up so much time. It's I'm doing this 90% of the time.
I get that. I think most of us that are out there watching as well probably spend an awful lot of time in their world in music, and it's why we're all here. It's without a doubt a deep addiction, and I don't mean that in a bad way. I mean it in the kindest of ways, and I love the time that I spend with music. And even though I probably need to spend more time at home, you end up finding that basically I spend a lot of time at work, sitting here in my office, and basically just like being in the business. I enjoy it. So I was going to ask you if you played any instruments, obviously drums and that kind of thing. You ever been with a band here in Atlanta or anything?
Tons of bands throughout my life, but once you really start traveling a lot, it's more jam sessions now than anything. But luckily, I've got musician friends all over the country. So a whole lot of times I'll get to a place and I'll have a set of drums rented, and we'll end up doing some jams wherever we happen to be. We started this really cool thing before Rocky Mountain Audio Fest, and we all get together and just a bunch of good friends that all play, and we get 75, 80 people from one of the local places up there that are and just have a really good time doing that. So yeah, I go all over the place. I'd love to be doing it more out than I do, but I play for a reason. I play for me, and so I have a great time just sitting back there playing by myself, or jamming to a particular artist. Mel, in fact, the original owner of HiFi Buys, he just got a set of Roland drums. And I
I
had to go
saw
over there and
that.
set them up for him, right? So
Yeah.
I'm over there, I get them all set up. He is thrilled. Before I walk out, he hands me this little thumb drive, and it's got like 3,200 songs on it with no drums. So this was just a
Oh
total
my.
breeze for me. So yeah, I get to do that kind of stuff a lot. So it's a lot of fun.
Well, how exciting. Mel's a great guy. Um, so, one thing I actually just signed up for, I'm actually doing piano lessons online streaming right now. I can't tell you that I've learned a ton yet, but a few chords and learning my way around and that kind of stuff, and played when I was a kid a little bit, and had a little note from my piano teacher that I got sent home with, and it said, Alan does not want to learn how to play the piano. And that was I've got it around somewhere, and I got to get it framed and put it up here. But anyway, it actually gave me a background for reading some music and that kind of thing. So it's made my life a little bit easier right now and trying to pick some of this stuff up. But I wish I had a little more time to do it. So tell us a little bit about life experiences, things that have had an impact on who you are.
Obviously my mom and dad, they were probably the biggest influence. They were the people that, for good or bad, gave me this work ethic that I've been plagued with my whole life. But
We've
mom
all
and
seen
dad
it.
were like, there's no free lunch. So you get in trouble, you got to bail yourself out, and we expect these things from you. And they just really, I think, in all of the kids, instilled a real work ethic in us. When I got a little older and started working, I had a lot of mentors because I try to learn from everybody. One in particular was Steve Bryant, my old boss at HiFi Buys. I often say I could never be me without have spent all the time that I spent with the wonderful people that I spent there. And little later on in life, I mean, I loved doing that. I got to do talent acquisition for HiFi Buys. Then I got to do all of the training for them. So we would hire in a bunch of people because we had 10 stores back then. I would spend 30 days with them before they said boo to a customer,
Mm-hmm.
and teach them everything that I could teach them about the world of audio and video. When I left HiFi Buys, after that, I worked for a few companies that are large now, but were really small back then. I brought Monitor Audio
Mm-hmm.
into the United States from England. Actually, they were here, but they just weren't doing any business. So we brought that company in. Worked for a company called Kevra. Then we did the same thing with Musical Fidelity. I worked for those guys for, I guess it was about a decade, and then we opened up a company called Peachtree Audio with a good friend of mine, and I worked with Peachtree for about, gosh, I guess it was almost another decade at that. And then I got this really, really cool opportunity to work for a company called Tidal. It was this company out of Oslo, and they somehow we got in touch. I don't even remember exactly how we got in touch, but at any rate, they had asked me to come and talk to them about some full res streaming, and that had never happened before. This was a
Right.
hugely historic thing. So I was really, really excited and went over and talked to a company called WIMP. That's what they were called before, right? WIMP. And I see this name and I'm going, you do realize you can't call it that here, right? It's kind of the opposite of what you're doing.
Right.
So they did this whole thing and came up with the name Tidal, and that was a really cool name. So I really, really enjoyed my tenure with Tidal. It was, I learned a lot. Um, one of the things I learned was the infrastructure of the United States internet wasn't quite ready for Tidal when it got here, and so we were getting a lot of skips and that kind of thing. At that point, the average internet speed in the United States was around 2 to 3 megabits per second, so it was really quite low. And if you weren't dealing with a program like Netflix or something like that, that just buffers and buffers and buffers and has adaptive capabilities that sort of go in and out of quality. Well, when you were dealing with full res streaming service that didn't do adaptive streaming, then it would just cut out, right? So we got a lot of mediocre experiences off that. But all in all, I think the world, and at least the United States, could see the possibilities of what was coming on.
Yep.
So I ended up working for those guys till Jay-Z bought the company. And maybe it's a year and a half later. And I pretty much didn't fit Jay-Z's posse. So they let me go. I never even spoke with any of those people. And I was super sad. I mean, because I really, really enjoyed the gig.
Well, there was no doubt you were engaged in that gig. I mean, and I've seen the same thing, obviously, with, Qobuz as well. It's amazing.
Well, the cool thing is back in the Tidal days, they let me do what I'm doing now, at least the original owners of the company, which is engage the audio industry, which I think is super, super important.
Yep.
Without the audio industry, I don't think any high res or full res service could make it. So it really taught me a lot. And as it was teaching me, and as I left Tidal, I continued obviously to stream it because, hey, it's cool.
Mm-hmm.
And the whole time, internet service is getting better and better and better, because this was around 2014, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then a couple of years ago, this really cool company out of France called me, named Qobuz. And I was thinking, what a weird name. And so I flew to France and met with those folks and laid out what I would like to do. Which was really the same thing that I was doing for Tidal, which is really introducing and promoting a high-res streaming service to the audio industry, because this was the first time that a true high-res service was available. Mm-hmm. So historically speaking, I was the first guy that got to bring in the first full bit service, which was Tidal. And then a few years later, I got to bring in the first high-res streaming service, which was, I got to tell you, I had to pinch myself just to even believe that I could be in a position like that, because this is some really cool stuff that we're doing. And to be able to do something like this, not only once, but twice,
right,
feels a little like lightning struck at the same, at the same place,
Well, David, you make that happen, man. That's why that happens for you. It's no doubt. I mean, the electricity you bring to things, and these companies see this, and that's probably, I think without a doubt why those relationships are formed and why you've always done well with what you've done. So anyway, we're going to get a little farther into Qobuz later. I had just a couple more questions for David. And shall we say, your first time with music where you just kind of went, wow. We all have kind of had one of those moments. And when do you think yours was?
Way early on, because it had nothing to do with sound quality. It had something to do with just the way music moved me. I still remember when I was a little kid, and my grandparents or something had maybe an AM radio, and somebody like Bobby Gentry would come on singing "Ode to Billy Joe," and man, I'm telling you, even as a little kid, it's even happening now. I would get cold chills and it would move me. I mean, I can still do that in a grocery store today. You know,
Yeah.
I'll walk down an
To the
aisle.
70-volt system
Right.
and the
It doesn't matter. I
I
mean, to me,
agree.
the core love is not about the actual boxes. It's about what the music that's created. And I happen to be an audiophile and I love my high-end gear. But if I have to listen to something on my iPhone because I just dig the tune and nothing else is available, I will listen to it on my iTunes and feel happy and blessed that I had that experience.
Awesome. Awesome. Let me ask you, we heard a lot about your experience in the business, kind of all the way almost up to and Qobuz. But how did you get into the business?
A total mistake, or not a mistake. It was a fluke.
Yeah.
Yeah, my band was going to make it at the end of the summer and we were going to get signed. So I thought, you know, to myself, this was like in 79. And I thought, well, let me go work for a hi-fi place so I can, you know, get a good discount on hi-fi before I become a rock star. And of course, that 30 years later.
Yeah, yeah. I know. I'm 35 plus, so I'm with you.
Yeah. So, you know, it was just a total fluke. I had no direction. I just thought it would be a cool thing to work around music all day. And like for the first 5 years I did this, I swear, and I've said this to a lot of people, and I don't know if they believe me or they don't believe me, but it's totally true. I could not believe people were paying me money to do this. I was having the time of my life. This is around the time that those do you remember? Do you remember the big Pioneer system with the EQ and everything on the racks, the big
Yep.
silver stuff that just looks so cool,
Yep.
right?
It was great. Blue meters and yeah.
Yeah, blooming. It
Yeah.
just looked cool, right?
Yep.
That's the kind of stuff that we were selling. So I was just like, I didn't know what I was doing. Not really, but I got to tell you, I've been a sound man my whole life, so that really, I had started that way early, and that helped me out in the audio industry a tremendous amount because I really did have a basis for audio. I understood
Mhm.
signal flow and equalization and those kind of things, but really, in the big scheme of things, I knew that much about audio. I just knew what I liked, and I knew that it moved me, and I loved and I know you do too. There's nothing like, you know, putting a piece of music on for somebody and watching them, uh, watching their expressions and watching their body language and watching how it moves them. That I still love to this very day.
Yep. I think, one of the things that we talked about with the other folks in these hi-fi chats about you get into the business, you seem to be in it until, you can't work anymore because it's just one of those things where it kind of just seems to be very innately in us. I think some of my experiences also on the floor have been kind of like yours, where it's like, wow, this is so much fun. And, people talk to me about, Alan, what are you going to do when you retire? And I'm like, I don't know that I would. I love the life
Right.
that I have in this, and I enjoy working with customers. And as long as I can stand up, walk around, and talk to them, I think that's probably what I'll wind up doing.
I feel exactly the same way. My wife even says that to me. She goes, "You're not really going to ever retire, are you?" I'm going, "Well, baby, I don't really work." This is
Well,
what they're paying me to do. Are you kidding me?
we are fortunate people. It's kind of funny. People ask me, "You just sit around and listen to music all the time," and I tell them, "No, I have a business, and it comes along with the stresses and things that go along with that." But all in all, I enjoy getting up in the morning and love coming to work, and I love working with both my customers and the manufacturers, folks like yourself, and that kind of thing too. It is just the people that I guess I've known forever, because again, when you're in the business, you're in it forever. So we're all kind of on the same plane together, and it's really a wonderful thing. So I want to take just a quick little break here, and if y'all don't mind, those that are out there, if you will, like and follow us here. You'll see some places on the screen that you can do so. Also, if you will, go to HiFi Buy's website, and if you sign up for our newsletter, that'll let you know what's kind of coming up in the future. And hopefully we'll be able to have some in-store events here very soon, maybe maybe not very soon, but soon. And I appreciate all the frontline workers out there, and all the folks that are working on our food supply and that kind of thing as well. And also the folks that are staying at home with social distancing and helping us being able to kind of get out of this as soon as we possibly can. I did want to let y'all know that Qobuz and David Solomon have been very kind to offer 6 months that we're going to give away, 6 months of Qobuz that we're going to give away, and that we'll announce that at the end of this after the Q&A. He's also got some Qobuz pins, which are pretty cool. I've even got one. So you want to show us one there, David?
Yeah. The cool thing about these is they're not available anymore. We had a batch made, so this will be the only batch made from these. And bear with me 1 sec, I'll show it to you. So I think Chris has got one actually. Oh, you do too as well.
Yep.
There's not a lot of people that have got these though. I think we only had a few hundred made, but it.
Look at that.
Like.
Yep. Now y'all are excited out there, aren't you? Yes. So anyway, we're going to give away.
It looks like a turntable too, doesn't it?
David, yes, it does. That's why I was. Hey, I got. I believe it's 4 of those. Correct. I don't want to overstate our bounty here.
Those were my last 4. Yeah, I've got 4 left, and they're yours, my friend. All
right, fair enough. We're giving away 4 of those pins, and we'll notify those folks by email. So if you will, go down to the feedback form to enter for the prizes. And also, we're going to give away about 3 things of sweet jams. This is our playlist, which is out on Qobuz. It's Funky Owl's House of Sweet Jams. You can get raspberry beret, strawberry fields, purple haze, or eat a peach. So anyway, we look forward to being able to get those in your hands. It's actually very good jam. So and besides the jams. Also, there were 3 playlists that we wanted to let you know about. Qobuz is doing all the way through May 15th. They've got 21 albums. Is that correct, David?
Yeah, 21 albums.
Okay, 21 albums. It's called Music Gifts, and it's free for you to share and send to someone, so they can be downloaded again through May 15th. There is a link in the chat. We also have a link to HiFi chats, so the music that gets mentioned during these chats that we're doing by the folks in the industry. We're going to put together a HiFi chats playlist, and so that's already being built through the 3 that we've done previously. And of course, David will contribute to that, and we'll hear a little bit about that here in just a second. So anyway, those 3 playlists are out there. So anyway, David, tell us a little bit about a particular piece of music that moves you and why. And this is everybody's most difficult question, because there's normally not just one, but can you pull one out that you can just tell us that is a piece of music that just really, really gets with you?
Oh my God. There's so many. It just really kind of depends on the mood, but something always pops into my mind, and it's usually the same thing when someone asks me that. It's Jackson Browne, The Pretender. That whole album, there's not a song on there that just doesn't move me to the core. And yeah, I just love that album. But there's so many and so many genres. I listen to a lot of music, and a lot of people turn me on to music. So yeah, but if I had to pick like one thing, I think that probably would be
Well, that's awesome. That's one of the greatest things about being in this industry, is being able to share music with others and have them share it with you. And I wanted to give you a really, really high praise for you guys that are not out there on Streaming Music Matters and Qobuz Fan Club. It's on Facebook. You end up finding it. You really share a lot of really cool stuff there, and I know a lot of others do as well. So if you're interested in kind of discovering new music and that kind of thing, obviously it's one of the reasons streaming is here. It gives us more ability to get out and experience more stuff, and also be able to share it with others as well. And again, I think your Facebook group does that very, very well.
Thanks.
And so thank you for that. We talked about your kind of path to Qobuz and that kind of thing, but I wanted to find out a little bit about mentors. Who are your mentors in this business or in life?
Well, you know, we had mentioned Steve Bryant.
Yep.
He has certainly been a mentor.
I know Steve well.
In HiFi, obviously Mel was up there.
Yep. One of mine as well.
Jeffrey and Carrie Snow. And then when I got into this side of the business, we have got a lot of people that model such wonderful things, like Terry Medellin of Primaire, the guys from Bowers, what an incredible team those guys have got. And believe it or not, there's this old fellow, and he's not that old, but I could sit at his feet forever. Technically, Richard Vanderstein, he's one of my just favorite guys to talk with because he's just got so much knowledge pent up and just dying to share it with you.
Yep.
Another one of those guys on the digital side would be Gordon Rankin. So these guys that are my heroes or that I really take from, they really have to have something to bring to the table. I want to be taught things that I don't know so that I can impart that information on others. Cookie Marenko is another one on the recording side, because what we listen to isn't about one thing, which a lot of times audiophiles try to make it about one thing, which are the boxes that we're listening to, but there's a whole chain. And if we understand better how the whole chain works, we really end up understanding those boxes a whole lot better. So Cookie Marenko from a recording side, Steve Turnage, who's in a band, Bats a Ballard out of Seattle. He's another great mastering engineer. And when you start talking to these guys, in fact, we're going to be doing some live streams with those kinds of people that will just sort of dispel this whole 2496, 24182 DSD. It kind of almost dispels all of these talks, because what I find are in most of the forums, people talk about them the wrong way. They talk about them from one perspective, which is typically the very last perspective. It's either that or they're spoken of in absolute terms. I'll give you a perfect example.
Okay.
No system can even produce the dynamic range of 1644. Why do you need 2496? Which is really a perfectly legitimate question if you only look at the numbers, and if you're a mathematician stuck on a blackboard in school.
Right.
Yeah, you have to kind of look at theoretical numbers, but what you really have to look at is the whole recording process. That when someone has the ability to record in 16-bit or record in 24-bit, is it easier for that part of the chain to make a better recording with a higher bit format than a lower bit format? Anyone that tells you no has no idea how that works. Right. Because all we're doing now is we're giving recording engineers and mastering engineers just a tool that's headroom, right? Yep. Everybody wants headroom in every single thing they do. Everybody wants headroom in their car. You can only drive 55 on the highway, but you sure don't want to buy a car that only drives 55, right? It would wear itself out. Everybody wants headroom. When you got a pair of speakers,
I couldn't do it.
100 watts. I mean, I'm the kind of guy that's going to put 200 watts on it because I want that headroom. I never want to run out of power or be at the end of my rope. It works the same way with digital recording. You never want to be at the end of your rope. You always want to have more than you need so that you can hit the highest quality that you can hit from a recording standpoint.
It's kind of like when you're building a system. I mean, anytime you have a portion of the chain that's going under stress, and you're kind of close to the limits, you actually hear that system at its limits. And so having the extra headroom and that kind of thing that's available in these higher res and higher bit recordings is really important.
And no matter where it is, Alan, you're absolutely right. It could be your preamp might not have enough.
It could be a microphone.
It could be, right, exactly. That's where I was going with this thing. It could be all the way back in the chain. But a lot of times you'll get blamed for a recording not sounding good because, why doesn't your, ultimate system make this recording sound good? Well, because it was terrible to begin with.
Not
so
good.
just enjoy the music and don't worry about the recording.
I think that's one of the things I have run into on the floor a little bit about high res and that kind of thing. And if it sounds good, everybody imagines that it is high res. And that's not necessarily the case either. So one of the things that we've learned basically is, like you were talking about this, the thousands and thousands of people that were capable, that were necessary to make one recording get to our ears and produce it in a system is absolutely amazing. when you think about how many people were involved in that chain, from instrument manufacturers to equipment manufacturers to studio engineers to, I mean, you know, the actual people playing the instruments and so on and so forth. I mean, it's mind boggling to, when you really kind of list it out. I'd recommend, if you want to play around with that thought, do that. You'll find an amazing list of people. I've done it. And so anyway, I do find that amazing. But, you know, when you have great people all the way down the chain, you're going to wind up with a pretty great recording as long as you're at full res and above. Do we have more ability at higher bit rates? Absolutely. Okay, so that's one of the things that I think that Qobuz is bringing, is that ability, especially as newer music is being done in those regards, and even as they're going back to some of the master tapes and redoing it. So, David, I have a question for you that probably others have wanted to ask, and that is, the stuff that you have in high res, was it recorded in high res? Did it start out with some of it as analog tapes? Is some of it upsampled? How does that work within Qobuz, and how do y'all look at that?
Yeah. Yeah, everything that we do, we ingest and deliver natively. So if we get a recording that's 1644, that's exactly what you get it in. Anytime you try to upsample, you probably know this from just, you know, being in the business so long, and there's been a lot of shysters out there that would try to take a 16-bit recording and then put it in a 24/192 format, which absolutely does zero for the recording, or even worse, they try to upsample it, right? The math is the math. You need to keep the math the same the whole way through, if at all possible. So if we have it in 24/192, that was how it was delivered. And that can be delivered a couple of different ways. Either A, it was recorded digitally in that format, 2488 or 2444, 2448, whatever it happens to be. You'll see all of those formats on Qobuz. So they'll deliver it to us digitally if it was recorded digitally. But this is a really cool thing. Analog stuff, we're getting master tapes that, instead of the master tape being recorded in 1644, it's recorded in 24/192 or 24/96. And you brought up a point a minute ago, and I want to really expound on that a little bit.
Okay.
You were talking about a great recording can be a great recording at 1644. Totally agree with you. If the recording engineer is up to it. But I got to tell you, most recording engineers never have been. There's been those rare 16-bit recordings that you go, oh my God, that's 24/192. I cannot believe how incredible it was. You remember the JVC XR CDs from Roy Desson? What an incredible recording engineer that guy was. Even up until his 80s, he was incredible. There's an album, and you can look it up on Qobuz now. And if you don't have a Qobuz subscription, we've got 30-day trials that you can get on Qobuz.com. But there's this album by a guy named Tony Futuro, and it's a title album. The Tony Futuro Band. Cookie Marenko recorded this, I don't know, maybe 25 years ago.
Yeah.
You put that thing on, and if you ask an audiophile, that's a 24/96 or 24/192 recording. That's how good Cookie was, right? But even Cookie admits and says, you know, I can make a great recording at 1644, but I can make an even better recording at a higher resolution, which that's all she does these days.
Right. Yeah. The extra headroom definitely comes in. So I appreciate you expanding on that point as well.
And by the way, I think did I answer that question all the way?
Yes, you did. Yes, actually, very specifically. Thank you. All right. So can you tell us just kind of a brief history of Qobuz, how they became to what they are, and kind of where they started and how it all of a sudden then became in the US and so on?
Yeah, in 2015, Qobuz was about out of business. But
they had been in business for how long before that?
I think it was like 2012 or something like that. They had started off as like a classical and jazz streaming service. So Back then, these guys were all about getting all of this eclectic music that just no one had. It was really kind of a cool concept, but it wasn't run very well. A few years later, when the company wasn't doing so well, it was bought by our current owners, and and started making deals with record companies for other stuff, pop and rock and whatever, all the other genres. And it started building slowly and slowly and slowly. Since 2015, it's been in really good hands. From a management standpoint, we would like to expand more than we do or faster than we do, but these guys are pretty smart fellows in France, the management, and they take on only what they can take on. It was really tough opening up in the United States. And you remember this, Alan, when we first got here. In fact, it was a whole lot like when I first got here with Tidal. People would call me up and go, why don't you have, Ricky Lee Jones, or why don't you have, this guy or that guy? And what it is it's got to be all ingested. So once you start opening in a country, you'll have, I don't know, 20, 30 million tunes to download, right? Or to ingest. And most people don't have any idea how long that takes. And I was even asking, I was going, oh, we just got, I think Dan told me, I don't know, it's a year and a half ago. Oh, we just got The Orchard, that 14 million songs. And these are like really, really popular tunes. And I'm going, oh, fantastic. Well, it'll be up in a week or two. And the engineers looked at me from France, and they're going, David, what do you think? It's a button you push. It's not that easy. It's like it took us like 7 months to get 14 out. 14
so they were like, you're definitely from the US. It takes longer.
Exactly. Plus, we got 6 weeks of vacation in there.
Right. So no,
but it's a long time to ingest this stuff, because we're not just ingesting it; we're doing spot checking and all that kind of stuff to make sure that we don't get something that says one thing and is another. And we have gotten a few of those.
Yep. I know that I've had, and I couldn't even tell you which service I've had it on, where I've been playing one song and a different piece of artwork shows up, and I'm like, but that's been really, really rare. Yeah. So I want to ask, how many songs does Qobuz have?
It's right around 42 million, I think, right now. We got another 8 million in the queue.
Wow.
So
that's like a week or two before when you press the button to get those in?
Yeah. Something like that.
All right.
Something like that.
All right. And of those, how many are high res? Just a percentage or just a general idea?
Well, about a year ago, we had about 2 million, which was way more than anybody else has. Still today, we have more high resolution than any other streaming service, and it's all in FLAC, so you don't need any kind of special DAC or any kind of special equipment really to decode it.
Very good. So full res and high res, I think we've talked about the difference a little bit. Do you want to expand on any of what we've kind of said about that?
It's just been a point of confusion with people. I sit on the CTA board, the Consumer Technology Association board, and this comes up all the time. What should we call this? People don't understand what CD quality is anymore. We call it full res and high res. We think that's the right terminology.
Yep.
But then you have this huge company come along like Amazon that's calling it high definition. So it's just there's so much confusion out there.
Didn't Apple call compressed music high res? Something like that?
They called it something
improved,
like that. They call it high quality or something like that. I don't know, but it really is designed. All of this is designed to misrepresent what's really going on. There should be an absolute standard, but the way that I use standards is I try not to use terminology because it can be so confusing.
Yeah.
I like to just tell people in kilobits per second what the different streaming services are actually streaming, which gives you, if you can keep everything on the same terminology, it makes things so much less confusing. You want me to go over that real quick?
Yeah. Do you have a
I
quick
think it's
version?
interesting because so
Okay.
many people don't know, to your point. So if
Yes.
we start off with music services like Pandora, they're about as low as it gets, and this would include XM as well on their low section. They're streaming at 192 kilobits per second. That is almost anybody can hear the difference when you step up from 192. 192 to me is good for voice, but once you start playing music or any kind of complex waveforms, 192 kilobits per second falls apart. So one place that gets super confusing, and I've had people say this to me, my wife said this to me, well, Pandora's 192, but you're 192 as well. Well, no, baby, we're 24 192. And so it does get confusing because 24
Yes.
192 doesn't mean it's 192 kilobits per second. That's why I wanted to do this. So if we go into Pandora, you start at about 192 kilobits per second. The next step up from that is companies like Apple, Google. You're at about 256 kilobits per second. Now the crime in this is that Apple just stopped. I think they just stopped selling downloads, but they were selling 256 kilobits at the same basic price that you could buy full resolution CD at Best
Yep.
Buy or something, right?
Yep.
So you go from 192 to 256 with Apple. From Apple in Google and those guys, you go up to the first one that I consider to be pretty darn good, Spotify. And I like Spotify. I think they've got a lot going for them.
And this is the paid version of Spotify you're talking about.
The paid version of
Okay.
Spotify will give you 320 kilobits per second. When that's when, to me, it starts getting okay. I'm fine on the river with my Bluetooth speaker firing out Pandora, firing out Spotify if that's what I've got available to me. No problem at all. But when I go above that, I want to go to something that's going to be more of a CD quality. The difference between, say, Spotify and CD quality, or say a Tidal, would be going from 320 kilobits per second with Spotify to 1411 kilobits per second at just a standard CD. That's a lot of information that's lost between 320 and 1411. Tidal also has some high risk through a process called MQA. I'm not quite sure what their kilobits per second would be, but that would certainly be higher than 1411. However, when you go to a company like Qobuz, we have got files that are up to over 9,000 kilobits per second. So when you start talking about going from, say, a company like Spotify to a company like Qobuz, and you're dealing with the difference between 320 kilobits per second and over 9,000 kilobits per second, there's huge differences, and it doesn't have to be on a Dan D'Agostino Wilson system to hear that, right?
Right.
Like you can have a pretty good set of cans, a
Yep.
fairly decent set of cans, and hear that all day long. Or
Yep.
even some of these IEMs,
Mm-hmm.
even some of the inexpensive IEMs, I'm totally blown away with, and you can absolutely hear the difference there as well.
Yeah, it's pretty amazing what technology has done to be able to get us very affordable audio. I mean, it's kind of funny as the upper end of this business has gone farther and farther. The lesser expensive stuff in this industry has gotten better and better as well, and so it's been very interesting. And so it's kind of the almost the necessity today. Maybe I shouldn't call it necessity. Listen, I tell folks, Bluetooth. If you want a Bluetooth, it's fine. Use it. If you want to use Pandora, it's fine. Use it. Whatever you enjoy is what I want you to enjoy. I just think that, I think once people actually hear what the fullness of a song is through a decent system, they kind of go, wow, okay, I get that.
I got an experiment for you, because almost everybody's got Bluetooth in their car these days, and that's
Uh-huh.
most people actually listening to their audio.
Right.
Take your cable, your USB cable, and listen to the difference. If you're dealing with a higher res stream, listen to the difference between that Bluetooth signal that you're getting and a direct connect. There's absolutely no comparison. The direct cable beats it every single. I've never heard it when the direct cable wasn't audibly better, even in a car environment.
So what David's saying is basically is that if you have an automobile out there, and normally if you have Bluetooth in it, you're also going to have a USB hookup, and so you should direct wire it. If any of you need any help with that, let us know. Okay, we at HiFiBuys.com. We're happy to help. All right, so we were talking about some of the things. Again, y'all, if you will sign up on the feedback form for the entry for the prizes, we have basically 6 months of Qobuz that David Solomon and Qobuz were very, very kind to offer up. So we'll be notifying that winner at the very end of this. We also have 4 of those fine Qobuz pins, and also some Funky Al's House of Sweet Jams to send out to you as well. So and we'll announce the last 6 folks by email. We also would like you to like and follow along. There's some places on your screen to do so. And also, if you'd like to go to HiFiBuys.com and sign up to our newsletter, it'll keep you informed of what we got going on, not only now, but as we go to the future. We are going to have Mike Latvis of HRS here next month. We will have Ken Forsyth of MQA as well. And also Richard Vandersteen. And we've got quite a few other folks lined up after that as well. So it's really fun doing these. I'm enjoying learning about you, David, and I'm sure that everybody else is as well. So let's move on a little bit. Why is it that full res streaming cost more?
It's like a premium. That's what the record labels charge more. So if that's what we're about, then we just end up having to pay more.
Yep.
But something pretty interesting happened back in November. Amazon, they entered the high res streaming market. They're doing 24/192 stuff as well, just like Qobuz, except instead of, we were $25, and it was worth every penny of it to me. I mean, where are you going to get this kind of music for that kind of dollars? Nowhere. Amazon entered the business, and then they went for $15. If I'm Jeff Bezos, I'm going, this is going to put these guys out of business in a skinny minute. It really would have, but our guys in France, they got on it. They renegotiated with the record companies, and we came out with, not long after that, it might have been 6 or 8 weeks after they launched, that we met their price. So we're now $15 per month for high resolution audio. And if you pay for it for a year, you're down to like $12.50, which is about 50 cents cheaper per month than Amazon. So now you got a company that's a real music loving company, not just someone that's throwing up a site because, it's going to bring them more business. But God knows Jeff needs it. So
He's
but
probably
it really
done enough.
helped us out a lot.
He's probably done enough in toilet paper in the last 2 months just to, be okay.
Oh yeah.
I was absolutely very surprised by y'all's announcement to get down there in price as well, and was so happy for y'all doing so. I basically will always tout Qobuz, Deezer, Tidal, that kind of thing, well before Amazon. There are a lot of Amazon Prime members that are out there, but I think you may find that the music selection and that kind of thing that's in these other outfits is definitely at a better level. I know that I've seen that from Qobuz, and you guys might, when you get to 50 million songs, I don't know of any other service out there that's as that diverse.
They're all getting it. We'll all end up. I mean,
everybody's gonna wind up
with the same stuff. I mean, it's just a way of the world. What they won't be able to end up with is a whole lot of this eclectic jazz and classical that we collected between 2012 and 2015.
Wow.
You find stuff on Qobuz from that era that's no place else. But the main stuff you're pretty much going to find at some point available pretty much across the board. It's just a matter of ingesting, and then there's still a few deals that we'll put together, but at some point the actual selection will look pretty similar on most.
I know that I know that Tidal was trying to talk about their exclusivity with this album or that album or whatever at some point. Normally those are very short term deals, I guess, and then basically it opens up to everybody. So it's
there's a few exclusives that we got that really I don't think will be opened up to people, because we sought out these labels because we're music lovers, and they're just totally off the radar of most people. Perfect example is Blue Coast Records. Nobody else has got Blue Coast, but I went to Blue Coast and went, I am in love with the way you record. I am in love with your artists. You know, can we please do this? Well, they were, you know, they only sold their their music, right?
Hmm.
But after speaking with these guys long enough, they finally went, yeah, you know what? You guys love music as much as we do. We're going to let you guys do this. But you won't see them doing that with the guys that have just got a service.
Hmm. Awesome. So how has Qobuz and streaming in general evolved as the world has evolved? I think you touched on it a little bit as you were kind of going through the progressions of you know, our capability as far as being able to have bandwidth and that kind of thing.
That's
My
exactly
Lord,
right.
I just, and I'm sorry, I asked the question and then I just, can you imagine how much bandwidth we're using today versus 2 months ago?
Can you imagine how much bandwidth we're going to have in 6 months that we don't have now?
No.
It's just the whole thing is opening up so wide. And I'm glad you
Yep.
brought that up because I meant to
Good.
finish out a thought that I had had when
Please.
you remember when we were talking about in 2014 when I brought Tidal in, we were dealing with, you know, maybe 2-3 megabits per second as an average.
Hmm.
I don't know what it is right now, but I read an article about 6 months ago. It was a trade magazine, and we're now clocking about 20 megabits per second. And this
Wow.
is at an average, right?
Hmm.
So when I got to know the guys in Scandinavia about, 6 years ago, I was enamored with their internet system because the Scandinavian countries, while we were dealing with 2-3 megabits up and down, these guys were 1,000 up, 1,000 down. I'm going, oh my God, this is where this thing is going. We're going to be able to stream a Mack truck soon, right? I mean, so you can stream almost anything now. But that's one of the beautiful things about all the planets aligning right now.
Hmm.
Um, we could bring out a service like Qobuz that streams at these really high bandwidth rates. But if you're dealing with a pipe that can't deliver that, it's going to be an absolute horrible experience.
Right.
So thank goodness Qobuz launched February of last year. It was actually on Valentine's when
I remember that.
internet was as good as it's ever been. And now we're looking at 5G. And then I read an article last night about 6G. Are you kidding me? That's going to make the internet that we've got right now look silly. So things just continue to progress and coverage is getting better and better. Our experience with entertainment and high bandwidth is just going to get better and better because there's only so much you can do with bandwidth to reduce it before you start really affecting the quality.
Hmm.
And thank goodness we don't have to do really anything with the bandwidth at all. What we've got now is just fine. If it gets any better, it's just more headroom.
Yep. Yep. Everything's going to relax. That's
Well, it already kind of is now.
yep. Hmm. I've been absolutely you know, floored. I love playing records and I have nothing, you know, vinyl versus digital. You know, I don't live in one of those camps. I live in both of them.
Me too.
And you know, I think that they both have their abilities and that kind of thing. But you know, it is the reason that we all kind of connect with this stuff is to be able to, you know, either have an emotional reaction, have a memory, you know, create a feeling, that kind of thing. It's all there for the same reasons. So
Yeah,
um,
I don't think that's actually even a debate. It is a sort of a BSy kind of debate on Facebook a lot. It's like, well, I don't like vinyl. I like digital. Or the other guys are going, I don't like digital. I like vinyl. It's like, guys, it's just music. And if you are a vinyl guy, which I am as well, I've got a VPI Prime downstairs that I just absolutely adore, and I buy albums all the time because that really helps support artists too.
mhm.
Even along with our enjoyment of vinyl, when we've got time and we're in the place that we can do this,
Yep.
I do it just as much for artist support as I do for my own collection. Although I do dig having the albums. I've even bought a few from you.
Yep.
Um,
Yes, you have.
but it's not an argument. That's just a dumb
What's
thought pattern, right? You can't listen to a turntable in your car or on the road or in an airplane.
right?
If you dig vinyl, God bless you. Listen to it when you can. If you can't, the next best thing is listen to high resolution if you feel that vinyl is the best. But you don't want to not listen to music when you don't have a turntable around, or you'd never be listening to music.
Yep. And as we go through more and more this time, we're going to find that, most all the services will have some version of high res and that kind of thing, whether it be their own and that kind of stuff. Cause that's, the bandwidth's coming and, it's basically almost a forced medium of some kind. I hate to call it that, but
I
that's
kind of agree with that.
generally what will end up happening. I think, and it's going to be folks like you that basically keep your company on top of the world in the regards of, making sure the music's in front of us. So, again, I just love the fact that you share the music out there through your Streaming Music Matters and Qobuz fan page on Facebook. So
Thanks, man. What
have I plugged that enough?
You. What do you think about? I mean, Alan and I are friends, so we actually kind of do this. But what do you think about where do you think? I've got my own thoughts about this, but where do you think the future of MP3 is going?
I can't really see a use for it. There's going to be so much memory and so much capability that I don't know. I can't. I'm thinking about the other side, which is where can we go, as opposed to what is something I've already left behind go. But what are your thoughts?
It'll be price only. If there's MP3, I mean, there are people that listen to music for background. They don't really actively listen to music, which, you know what?
I still don't think that's, David, I think we're going to be at such a point with bandwidth. And I mean, even the cheap phones today have the ability to, get a pretty good quality signal in and so they could play any of the other apps and that kind of stuff. I think MP3 is probably toast in about 3 years.
Yeah, from a technical standpoint, absolutely. But you remember a question you asked me a little while ago?
Yeah.
Why does it cost more? Does it cost more for high res or something like that?
Mm-hmm.
The one thing that we can count on is that MP3 will always be less expensive from the labels to the provider. So yeah, I think there's going to be always bottom feeders. There's always going to be someone that they'll pay a penny instead of a dime for it, and put that service out there. Pandora has been an absolute perfect example of this.
Yep.
Staying at 192 kilobits. How could you do that?
Well, and Spotify, they have a free service. So I think if we look at, if we kind of, I think anybody that's paying right now, Spotify is cool because it has a really great app that people like.
Uh-huh.
And it's kind of like once you get used to an app and the way it works, it's hard to get folks to move. I know that because I have a hard time moving from one app to another in a lot of cases. And but I've also found that if I want quality audio, I'm going to have to make that move. I think Spotify is probably going to make that move at some point. And I think probably in your thing, in using the term bottom feeders, I think they're basically on the free Spotify and on the free Pandora. And I think those might remain free and those MP3s might become part of that. And
that's the only way that they
discussion.
Can remain free will be MP3. That's the only reason that I think that it'll survive. But really, technically, I think you're 100% right. There's no reason for MP3. We actually were the first company to drop MP3 all the way. We don't even have an MP3 tier anymore because we just don't believe in it. You can get it other places. So it's like, I don't think a lot of people go to Qobuz to.
Well, yeah, that's not your target audience. That's for sure. So during this pandemic, Qobuz has done some unique things. Tell us a little bit about that. And I know I've mentioned one of them. What can you tell us about what y'all have done?
A lot. And we're always in discussions with what we can do for the community in every single way, no matter where the community lies. That's really what we want to do. So we realize right now there's a lot of people that are not as fortunate as we are, Alan, and they're out of work. So we've got a program right now called Music Gifts, and I think Chris already put it up there. If not, we'll put it up on the link.
Yeah, he's got a link on the screen. Yes.
So these are a bunch of free albums that we're just going take them. You don't have to be a part of Qobuz. You don't have to put up any money or any credit cards or anything. This is literally our gift to the people that are going. I don't have 2 nickels to rub together right now, but I'd still like to listen to some real cool new music. So this is one of the things that we're doing. Another one of the things that we're doing is called Gimme Shelter, and this is all around musicians. So I think this is going on until, I want to say, May 25th or something like that. It's on the, if you go to qobuz.com, you'll see it. But what we're doing is anytime you download an artist's recording, we actually made money on that. We have a download store, not just a streaming store, because a lot of people, believe it or not, still like to own their own music. But every time you download something, the artists always get more money out of that. It's like buying a download or a CD or an album. They get a lot higher percentage than, say, if they were just streaming. Mm-hmm. So during this whole period while Gimme Shelter is going on, any profits that Qobuz was to get, we're donating those back to the rights holders and the artists, because these guys right now are not doing well either. And right. So we look at ourselves and go, how can we help these people? And this is the way that we're trying to do it. Bandcamp is doing a really wonderful thing as well. There's a few of the music services that are concerned with the artists. We're doing a lot of free concerts on Qobuz and Streaming Music Matters, mm-hmm. And all of those guys have got tip jars. So we're just encouraging people to think about where their music is coming from, and think about the people right now that have absolutely no ability to make money, and we're getting enjoyment off that. So I buy a lot of downloads myself, but I would encourage you guys, while we're in this period, please go to Qobuz and buy a few downloads from your favorite artists if you are financially able right now. If not, certainly we understand. But it's very, very much appreciated by these guys. And even when this is over, Alan, I'm gonna have a campaign that just keeps going. It's like, buy downloads. It's just the right thing to do. The same thing I would say, like, if you're going to a concert, don't just go to the concert. You know, buy their right. album, buy a T-shirt, support your artists. They need it, and they're worth it.
I have about 100 T-shirts at home, so and quite a few albums, even though I do streaming. And actually, a good buddy of mine, Frank Hunt, I used to go to shows with him, and he always bought me a CD at about every show, and he's the one that kind of gave me that practice. So it's been wonderful. Listen, I wanted, someone mentioned out there that MP3 probably about being a preferred format for audiobooks. And for that, I very much agree, because it keeps the books less expensive and that kind of thing as well. And the spoken word is very, very good for it. So anyway, I just wanted to mention that since that came up. So you guys, Qobuz Music Gifts. It's downloading 21 free albums that you can send to someone through May 15th. There's a link for that in the chat. Also want to let you know there's also a link for HiFi Chats playlist out there as well, which basically is all the music that David's mentioning today, and the people before and the people that'll be after. So we'll have a very eclectic mix of music there, but it's from everybody in the industry. Also, you'll get a link in there to Funky Al's House of Sweet Jams. We're going to be giving away 3 of these jams today. You can get a peach, or excuse me, eat a peach, Purple Haze, Strawberry Fields, or Raspberry Beret. And anyway, it's very good, actually made here in Georgia. And we'd also like you to like and follow. Somewhere on your screen there, you'll see that. And if you want to go to our website, sign up for the newsletter at HiFi Buys. We have David Solomon here, who is Chief High-Res Music Evangelist at Qobuz. That's him and his band behind him. Yeah, I know. I actually went and saw them because of your excitement about that, and that was really, really fun. So anyway, you started a thing I know quite a while back, and called Streaming Music Matters, and you added the Qobuz fan club. Tell us a little bit about it.
It's for music lovers. It was actually there before I even joined Qobuz. It was just called Streaming Music Matters.
I remember we did an event on the store with it.
I'm sorry?
I remember we did an event at the store kind of with that kind of in the background. So.
Oh yeah, that's right. I started it
a while ago.
Yeah, I started it because people were confused about streaming. They didn't know what was going on. There was so much bad information out there. People thinking Bluetooth was 24 192 and just crazy stuff.
Yep.
Not necessarily crazy stuff that you just wouldn't know unless you were in the industry or studied it, right? So I really put it out there as an educational and a music sharing group that I felt was lacking. And now it's turned into the same thing. I still put tons of information, it's general information. You know, how do you stream high res, or um, I've got calculators up there that show you what 24 192 equals in kilobits per second. Just interesting things that are there to help people enjoy music and also make some good decisions about, you know, what they should get or how they should get it. So it was really a public service that was just perfect. It turned out to be a perfect little fan page for Qobuz. So when I went to work for Qobuz, I changed the name to Streaming Music Matters and Qobuz Fan Page. And it's a great group, and there are some super knowledgeable people on there, like
Yep.
Alan. We've got Gordon Rankin on there. We've got Andrew Jones. We just so many people, so many industry experts that we've just got. It's a fantastic resource. And one thing that you will never see on that page is anybody arguing or being petty. Because if I ever see something like that happen, politics, arguing, or being petty, I just take it off the site because I think it's
Yeah.
completely crazy.
There's no need for it. We see enough of that
Yeah.
junk in our world just
Right.
hanging out. So
Speaking
well, that's
of which, I
fantastic.
would like you to vote for me this year, Alan.
All right, David, no politics. All right. So before we go any further, tell me what sets Qobuz apart from the crowd of other streaming companies.
Wow, so much. First off, the people. We've got a group of folks in France that love their job. They love music and they love Qobuz. One of the cool things about the team in France is it was about a quarter of the engineers and whatnot that we had with Tidal. But these guys get about as much done as we ever did. They're just really a bunch of very dedicated people. So what I would say to begin with is one of the things that sets us apart is that everyone on the front end and the back end of Qobuz are laser focused on high quality music. And most of these kids are like in their 20s, but they're totally brilliant. So that's one thing. And then obviously the service itself, while we may not be, you know, voice controlled and, you know, I've got those kinds of features. We've got things on our site that are really truly made for music lovers, like panoramas. So we not only throw the music up there, we've got tons of information about artists, and we do specials on artists and a lot of editorial on bands and the different players. So when it comes to metadata, you will find more on Qobuz than you will ever find on anything, because nobody's going to be able to catch up with us. And all of the new albums we get, we start on those things immediately. It's not like every single album is going to have a ton about it, but in general,
Right.
you'll be able to learn more about Qobuz than anything. I guess the next thing that makes us different is the thing that brings out the quality. We are full flat, just like studios, and we deliver exactly what the studios deliver. So if they deliver us a 2496 recording, that's exactly what you get. Since it's in FLAC, it's unfolded with any DAC back at your system, and you're dealing with a bit perfect signal. We're the only company in the world that does that.
That's awesome.
And we're the only company that can claim native 24 192 2496 files. Nobody else is doing that on a full service. There's a couple classical sites that are starting to come out now. Pretty cool little sites that are doing some high res classical. If that's all you're into, those are kind of.
Will you share with us who those are?
One of them is called. I don't want to butcher this, but I think it's called Primephonic.
Okay.
or something like that. But if you Google classical streaming, you'll come up with it.
Okay.
Here's the cool thing: since we went down to $15 per month, we're just about as cheap as those guys, and then you get everything instead of just one.
Yep.
Just one thing. The other thing that makes us different is that we're a download site as well. So we support artists as much as possible. And downloads by Eon support artists much, much more than just streaming does.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And then I guess lastly, our team in the United States. If you see the amount of work we've been able to get done over the last 2.5 years, you would think we had an army here. We've got 6 people, and that's to do every single thing that's got to be done at Qobuz. So we all wear a lot of hats, and we've got a super, super dedicated team. And then I guess there is one more thing that I think is probably the most important thing. And the reason that I'm here right now, we support the audio industry as well as the musical community. We think that the better the audio industry does, the better we do. So you'll see Qobuz, and we're the only guys that do this. You won't even see the other guys even peep or show their faces there. Nobody else shows their faces at the audio shows and supports those guys. We're at every single audio show known to man in the United States, and a good portion of them in Europe. They're supporting the manufacturers and dealers that are there, because the bottom line is if the high-end manufacturers and dealers don't do well, we don't either. And we can't take that core that we've got with these guys and expand it. That's really what we need to do to keep the high-end community alive.
Yep, we work with your target customer. I mean, very, very directly. And, I know the audio industry absolutely appreciates your support. And I know that I do. You've been at just a request from me or a call from me or anything, you're always willing and able and actually act. And so again, that's one of the reasons that we were able to get the 6 months with Qobuz. David's company offered that up. And so anyway, we were happy to be able to offer that today. Again, it's 6 months of Qobuz. And if you'll go to the feedback form down at the bottom, that'll get you the entry for the prizes, which again, 6 months Qobuz. And then the runner-up prizes are going to be basically 4 of the Qobuz pins, which we proudly displayed earlier. And then also 2 or 3 of the jars of Funky House's Sweet Jams. So we'd also like you to like and follow. If you want to go to HiFi Buy's website and follow our newsletter so you know what's coming up, that'd be awesome. There's also a link down at the bottom for music gifts, which is done by Qobuz. That's 21 albums that can be downloaded free. That's all the way through May 15th. Also HiFi chats, these HiFi chats that we're doing, we're making a playlist with all the music that's mentioned from all the folks in the industry that as we go from previous and as we go forward. Let's see, we are going to move into a little bit of, well, I do have one more question before we go into Q&A. So in this crazy world right now with this pandemic, how have you had to adjust your workflow and how you're going about things?
It's like my friend Angela Carta said a few weeks ago, check on your extroverted friends. We're not okay. If it weren't for Zoom, I don't know what I would do, or the video chats. I mean, I'm digging those because I do not like being by myself. I like being out in a crowd, and I miss the shows. And it's just so. How am I doing? Great. I'm doing fine. Actually really very much enjoying my family and being here with them all. I've got a 17 and an 18-year-old. And if you know anything about kids, you have to force them to stay home with you, which they are being forced to stay home with us. And we're certainly enjoying them. I hope they're enjoying mom and dad.
That's awesome. Actually, a couple of us, yes.
Before we go to a Q&A, I wanted to, remember I told you I was going to share my screen with you for a minute? Yes,
absolutely. Yes. And by the way, Angela's watching. So Angela's watching, so wave to her.
Oh, Angela, I love her. She is she's just turned into one of my best friends. So
and Michael, let me, Michael H., we will get to your question here in just a minute, okay? But this is great, David. Please show away.
So this is just the area where we show new releases. And I just wanted to show folks, just in case they didn't have an idea of the number of new releases that are coming out in high res. By the way, if you see these little high res logos, these little yellow high res logos, we're the only streaming service in the world that the Japanese Audio Society has given rights to that logo, which is, we're really proud of it. But if you look at just the number of those little logos that you see below the new music, this is the music that's come out in the last month. And depending on what week it is, we're getting up to like 90% high resolution from the labels. I mean, everybody is recording in high, I say everybody, most everybody is recording in high resolution these days. And it's really very cool. But I did want to show you that just because it was there. And then these are some of the panoramas we were talking about that feature different artists. We had a Billie Holiday the other day, and this is all about the women of rock, and so there's just all kinds of stuff to hop in on. And then if you ever go to our HiFi partners, you will see one of my favorite playlists. Oh, and who was that? HiFi by Society member. That's HiFi Buys, and this is their playlist. And it's a really, really good one. They've got a ton of stuff here. And something Alan was telling me not too long ago, they use a number of these songs to actually set up their HiFi. So this should be not only a nice playlist to listen to, but also a good tool for you.
Thank you, David.
That's it.
Awesome. I'm sorry. I knew we were going there, and sorry about missing the lead in for you, but
no problem. Because anyway, we always get you and I always get on a different subject. Anyway.
Yeah. Yes. All right. So let's do a little Q&A. And David, I appreciate you sharing of yourself during this interview, and not only just personally, but also with Qobuz, and kind of a little bit of your history within the industry as well. I know it's interesting for everybody to know about how you got where you are.
Well, so, it doesn't sound too interesting to me, but thanks for asking.
Well, it is to us. You're a humble guy, and we like that about you. All right. So I got a question from Michael H. Does Qobuz stream multi-channel or have plans to?
We do, actually. Right now, it's a mistake.
Okay.
If you've got Qobuz right now, you can do a search with hashtag multi-channel. And you'll come up with all of the records that we've got right now that are in multi-channel. I'll share the screen just so you can see it real quick.
Okay. Michael, you watching? Michael H.
So if you look at any of these, if you see I put hashtag multi-channel, I just searched it up in the top. You can see that up in the top right. And every one of these albums that we just pulled up, we could say see all releases. Every one of these are in a 5.1 format. It's not like there's a ton of them. I think we've only got about 35. We were just having a discussion with Dolby Atmos today about this very same thing. And apparently streaming multi-channel is getting to be, a thing.
Immersive audio.
I'm sorry.
Immersive audio. Yes.
Immersive audio. It's definitely becoming a thing. So while it's not a huge specialty of ours, we do have a few cuts there, but I'm really looking forward to the day that we do it. Not necessarily for me, but for a lot of folks are really digging that whole multi-channel thing. I'm a 2-channel guy.
Yeah. Is the 5.1, is that done in like what, Dolby Digital or?
Yeah. Well, it's good question. Let me look at it real quick because they all say it just says 5.1. I'm sure it is Dolby Digital, but you tell me, Alan, when you pull it up and play something and then get back with me and let me know, because I don't know. I don't even have a home theater.
We'll make sure we have an answer hopefully before the end of that, and we can give a specific answer, either maybe somebody from your channel or from mine as well. So I've got a question from Axel S. And I was sure this was going to come up, and I'm glad that it is. What user interface setup do you recommend? Rune, Audirvana, any tips to get the most out of Qobuz in terms of user experience and sound?
Yeah, it kind of depends on how you use it. I love Rune because I'm a big discovery guy.
Mhm.
If you've got, I always tell people, if you've got Rune and Qobuz and you can get to bed before 2:30 in the morning, you're doing it wrong. So
that,
if
that is
you're the
true.
kind of person that either A, loves rabbit holes. I am a total rabbit hole guy, and I will go there. And I'll give you an example of that, so we don't just have to leave it there. Because I see a lot of people go, "Oh, I love Rune," and but then why? Why do you love it? Okay, here's why I love it. Because when I'm listening to my favorite James Brown album, I can go, "Oh my God, who is that saxophone player?" And I go, "Oh, that's Maceo Parker." And as soon as I hit Maceo, everything Maceo's ever done or played on comes up, and I'll listen to 2 or 3 Maceo songs. And I'm going, "Oh my gosh, these 3 albums sounded amazing." Who was the producer on that? Oh, it was Rick Rubin. I don't know who it was. Rick Rubin. Yeah, all the stuff that Rick Rubin's got. So if you are into that kind of thing, some people would call it a total waste of time. I call it a boatload of fun. That's one reason you would love Rune. There's nothing like the music discovery on it, and there's nothing like the radio on Rune because it actually maps you differently than any other program. And it's kind of a very unique way and a beautiful way that they kind of discover what you like. So the more you interact with the Rune, the better their radio gets.
Can I jump in here? Can I jump in here for just a second?
No.
Yeah. Yeah. All right. All right. So you were mentioning that Qobuz has a lot more metadata.
Yeah.
And so one thing that Rune gives us access to is a lot more stuff around the
Yeah.
album. And that's kind of what you're getting at here. And I just wanted to kind of tie those two things together, because if the service doesn't have it, then Rune can't get it. Okay. And so it's looking at things in kind of a whole different way. Rune, from my own personal experience, we've gotten almost to the point here at the store. If you're not a Rune endpoint, we don't have you.
Yeah, so I think that Rune is there for people like us. And the other thing about Rune is I've got 12 different kinds of servers around my house, and I can
Yep.
open up Rune and choose any one of them and stay on the same GUI. There's no server that's got a GUI, a graphic user interface, even close to it as advanced as Rune. So I'm hook, line, and sinker every single way about Rune, but I'm not the only person in my house.
Right.
My wife does not like it. She's going, "It's too confusing. I don't want to say." You know what my wife uses? Qobuz. She loves that app, and I do too. I use it a whole lot on my computer. So there's like either nothing or whatever is on the server that you've got, like a Blue Sound or Sonos or whatever server you're using. They've got their own. If you've gotten used to those, you may want to stick with that.
Mm-hmm.
And then there's that other level that's sort of in between, which is the Audirvana, which sometimes, unfortunately, people need something that's a little less expensive than Rune. I mean, these guys, it's a fairly pricey piece of software in the long run, and that should never be a barrier for better sound if that's what you're looking for. My other favorite really is Audirvana, because that's like, I think only like $100 or something with the remote control that you obviously download on your iPad. But that's a really good setup, and either will make your computer, if that's what you're using as a core, either will make your computer sound better than it will just straight out of the computer. They take a direct path, both of these units, and they both sound a little different, and you may prefer one sound over the other. But yeah, I really, really like Audirvana. I like Rune a lot. And then I got to tell you, I like Qobuz. Anytime you're using Qobuz on mobile, you're going to be using the Qobuz app. So, but here's the cool thing. Anytime you heart something on the Qobuz app, it hearts it. It makes that your favorite in Rune as well. So if it's a song or if it's a playlist, all of these programs to me work together, or at least the two programs, whether you're using Qobuz or Android or Vana or Qobuz and Rune. I happen to use them all because I need to know what they do. But I like them both a lot, Alan. But not both are for everybody.
Right. Agreed. I have not seen one app that's for everybody.
Sonos is for a lot of people. They just want it so simple that,
Yep.
I just don't want to think about much, right? There's nothing wrong with that either.
Nope, not at all. Not at all. So let's see. We've got Axel. I hope that takes care of your question. So we've got a question from Tony S. Any plans for any DSD releases in the future? Any news or timeline on Bob Seger's catalog coming to Qobuz? Go Bob.
Okay, cool questions. Great questions. I got to tell you, I'm a big fan of DSD, and I hope so. When we do, if we do, it'll probably be a little while because it takes some more back end work, and we're pretty much, taking up the engineering space. But we are advocating for DSD and even Dolby Atmos. I think that if you can stream a format, you probably should at some point in your time. But I don't have a date for you. As far as Bob Seger, all of you guys you all work for me now. Because Chris I think he put up a link. If he didn't, he will. It's a request music link. Please put that up there. It's not like Bob is off of our radar. I wish Dan Matka, our managing director, was on, because he could tell you directly. It's at this stage of ingestion or this stage of signing or whatever it happens to be. But I'm sure Bob's not off of our radar, but I don't know it specifically. But if you'll request it, we will be looking into it. And then if you want to write one of us, we'll be more than happy to actually look into that specific thing for you.
Awesome. Okay, I have a little bit of a different question for you, but I like it. It's from Leo. Hypothetically, your house is on fire. Which album do you save?
One album? Oh my God, are you kidding me? Leo, you're evil.
Is that The Pretender?
I don't know. Maybe the Firebird Suite. Maybe Stravinsky's Firebird Suite. That's a pretty special one to me. That was the Atlanta Symphony Orchestra with Robert Shaw, and it was actually the very first digital recording. And I have no idea how they got it right, because it should not have been right.
It was a first, right?
That's one incredible album. I don't know. That's just not even fair, Leo. I don't like you.
All right. I understand. Leo, thanks. You stumped the judge.
You did. Stump the chump.
All right. So I've got a question from Larry S. Hey, Larry. I love Qobuz. Sometimes I encounter an album with a note: the rights to stream have not been released. Does that mean the rights are pending and we can expect it will be released soon?
Typically, yes. If we've got it up, there's not much reason for us to put something up just to tease you. It's either one of two things. We've either only got the rights to sell it, which some of those do exist, or it'll be there, at some point in the future. It's most likely in the queue to be uploaded. That's not 100%, but you can always, if you've got a specific one like that, you can always write us, because whenever you write us at our customer service, you're not talking to a robot. There's a human being, Sebastian. Sometimes he feels like putting a pencil through his neck, but he's a great guy and he will always answer your questions. I'll do the same if you can get to me as well.
All right. Let's see here. This is from if I mess this up, my apologies. I believe I know this gentleman is GT, but Jatendra, David, thanks for turning me on to Qobuz as a HiFi buys event last year. Could you provide a basic review of the numbers used to describe file quality, bits and kilohertz and kilobytes per second?
Yeah, I think we went over this a little while ago. To put it another way, the only thing that you're going to see on our site is anything that's 1644 and above. If you put that in kilobits per second, that would be 1411 or above, all the way up to over 9,000. I think that's what I'm pretty sure that's the question that you're asking.
Well, that and, 16, 24, that kind of thing. I guess as far as in the kilobits, I don't know. And people look at like the first number and the second number and look at them totally different. And we know that if we have more bits, it allows basically the DACs to relax more and that kind of thing as well. And as the music is made, of course, we know we have more headroom. And then the frequency that it's done at is another kind of layer on top of that.
Yeah, that's anywhere from 44K to 192K. That's pretty much where we stand in the speed, so, or the frequency that things are being sampled. So
okay. Another question from GT. I often find that I prefer to listen to CD quality recordings on Qobuz versus the same files on Tidal. What is the possible reason of the difference?
I hear that a lot, but I'm quite sure Tidal hears the same thing. I think it's just a preference. We don't do anything to these recordings. They're not enhanced in any way. So right. I'd love to be able to tell you, some techie thing that we just do better than other companies. I do hear that quite a bit.
David's special sauce.
It's really nothing. I mean, we don't do anything to it. So maybe that's the best thing to do, is nothing to it, because yeah, thank you. I'm glad you think so. I do as well, but I can tell you we do 0 to, you're getting a bit perfect signal. So if you've got a CD and you're listening to the same thing on Qobuz, there should be no reason other than you're not dealing with the exact same path that would even sound different. It's typically when people tell me their CD sounds better than the stream, I'm going, well, it's just not going through the same path. God bless you.
Yeah.
You want to keep it like that, go for it. But there's a simple explanation. These are ones and zeros. These are ons and offs. They can't sound differently if they're going through the same path. If it's bit perfect.
Well, I think sometimes, and by the way, I want to give a big shout out to Dan out there from Qobuz, who is answering questions in the chat.
Oh, cool.
So anyway, I just wanted to say thanks to you, Dan. That basically saves Dave an awful lot of effort.
Dan's our man in New York. He's heavily quarantined and the managing director of Qobuz. So we got a great guy answering questions there.
That's fantastic. All right, so I've got a question from Colin G. Hey, Colin. What are the hardware requirements of utilizing all the high-res content that Qobuz provides?
Not much at all. I mean, it's pretty much standard things these days will decode Qobuz, because we only go up to 24,192, and technology has gotten to such a level that I can tell you anything that Alan sells. I don't think you sell anything other than maybe Sonos. Sonos doesn't do 24,192. Correct. That might be a good thing for you to know. But most of the streamers they'll go all the way up to sometimes 64, 384. I mean, crazy resolutions, but really not a lot. One thing I will say about requirements that a lot of people don't think about is the noise in your system. You can only get as high of resolution is the noise in your system. So if you're one of these guys that are dealing with a system that's always going in the background, you'll never be able to get anything that will resolve lower than that. And there's a lot of stuff to resolve lower than that. Things that can help, depending on your issue, are anything from let's say you got bad power, you may want to look at a power conditioner, because bad power will cause noise. If you've got a preamplifier that doesn't have at least, like you see these guys all the time that come out with these killer preamps from the 80s. They're going, oh man, I'm using a GT555 Adcom preamp. It's as good as it gets. Well, no, it's not. It's got a signal to noise ratio that's really more compatible with a turntable, which is not really a lot of signal to noise ratio on those things. What you want to look at these days are signal to noise ratio. Make sure you get something that's 108 to 114 dB signal to noise ratio, so that you can resolve all of those nth degree of details. Because what high resolution is not anything big. It's millions and millions and millions of tiny, tiny details that, when you put them together on a system that's not noisy, means a lot. It means a lot sonically.
Yep. There's so many different ways to get rid of noise in a system too, and there's so many places that it comes from. So I appreciate you bringing it out in that part. So since Sonos got mentioned, we actually have a few questions on Sonos. One from Mort E. Hey, Mort. Hope you're well and safe and healthy, man. What would you suggest for Sonos users who do subscribe to get the best quality? Since high-res is not supported by Sonos, is it lossless then?
It can be. Most people don't know that Sonos will actually resolve. And I've been doing this for, I don't know, maybe 12 or 13 years. Sonos has always been able to resolve 1644. But about according to Sonos, these are people that have Sonos, about 95% of the people that stream Sonos only stream it at 320 kilobits per second. Right. Which is cool with Sonos because it always works, right? But you can stream all the way up to at least 1644. And the one cool thing about Sonos, because I've still got about 6 zones of Sonos hanging out in different areas of my house. If I ever throw in, say, a high resolution recording, it doesn't go with Qobuz. It doesn't say I won't play it. It just takes whatever it is. Say it's a 2496 recording, and it down samples it to 1644. So at least you're still getting CD quality off of your Sonos. But Sonos is actually pretty solid gear. The other good thing that I could say about Sonos is it just works.
Yep. My parents are in their 80s, asked me what they should buy, and I told them Sonos, but I mean, needless to say, they live in North Carolina, and I have to take care of it all the time. So I figured I ought to sell them something that I know I'll never have to really help them with. And so far, that hasn't completely been the truth, but it has been easier. So, all right, Mort, thank you very much. Good question. I hope that answers it. Jeff C. The upcoming Sonos S2 operating system update will support high-res content. Are you anticipating being able to take advantage of that to stream Qobuz at higher res rates as soon as it rolls out?
We'll know more later on. I hope so. I certainly hope so. I respect that company a lot, and we've been having meetings with them. We'll see how that turns out. The good news about Sonos is they're on the right path. I don't think you can stay at low resolution or even standard resolution and be as impactful of a company as they've been for the last 14 years. I think they've got to move up with the times too. One thing I really respect about that company is it would have been a lot easier for them and a lot better for them financially to trash all of the legacy stuff and go, sorry, it just doesn't work anymore. I don't know. There's kind of a bunch of companies out there like that, right? Like you would never see. I just had this the other day. I had my original iPhone, right? If I tried to use my original iPhone, which is only like, 10 years old or so, maybe a little bit more, right. There's no way it would work. It hadn't worked in generations. But this is a company that has taken their legacy gear and have been able to update that all the way up until now. Are you kidding me?
And-
That's a long, long time.
and still be able to, I mean, and it's still reliable, good used product.
It
So
still works just fine.
we're telling folks, if you want to do it, buy the new stuff so it can, go to the place and have updates and that kind of thing as we go down the road, and take the other stuff up to the lake house.
If I owned Sonos, that's probably what I would have done. But they had such an uproar of people going, "Oh no, you can't take my old Sonos away," that they went, "You know what? Okay, we'll just have another platform." So what they're going to end up doing is they're going to have an S1 and an S2 platform. If you're on the old stuff, you'll use the old platform, and then the new stuff with the better computers, the faster processors and whatnot, we'll use a new format. But I think it's a really good move for Sonos, and they're certainly headed in the right direction.
Yeah. So
It's
Jeff,
not my favorite anymore, but I got to tell you, it's still just about as dependable as it'll ever get. And if you ask my wife, she'll tell you that that's her favorite.
So Jeff C, I hope that takes care of you. What I know about Sonos in that regard is basically that the new player, which came out a few months ago, basically has a 32-bit processor in it. And, to have a complete system all doing that, they'd probably have to make some other adjustments within the line and that kind of thing. So who knows, maybe that's in the plans. We'll probably hear about, I don't know, whatever, as we get into the future. So let's see, Jim R. I've got a Sony HAT Z1 ES digital player. Any chance that Qobuz will put their app on these Sony players?
Sony will shoot themselves in the foot at any given second. I really like the company. I've got a lot of their gear. Some of my favorite headphones that I've got are Sony. But Jesus, how can you come out with a high res player that you can only record stuff on? That's just like, people aren't even doing that anymore. So no, we won't be. I would love to be, because we would be perfect. And if they would have just put one more brain cell toward how are people going to use this, they would have had a streamer built inside of it.
Right.
As of now, I'm pretty sure that unit has got, because it sounds great, but I'm pretty sure that unit's got a digital input so that you could use the DAC, and the DAC sounds really good as well, so that you could use some streamer to go from a player to that unit and actually use it. But you got to have another unit if you're going to stream from it.
Yep.
I can't believe they've done that.
And they had an ability to put, streaming on it. So
it's Sony. They had the ability to put a rocket on there if they wanted to, right? It's like, how do you not put that on there?
I never forget my first CES show, and it was like 1984, 85. And so I walk into the Sony room with all their pro gear, and I about just fell over. It was some of the most beautiful stuff I've ever seen. Crafted, engineered, just laid out. I mean, it was, oh my gosh, I still remember that to this day. It's that was an impressive collection of gear, and I've never seen anything like it since. All right, so I got a question from Michael. Can I use Qobuz with my Macintosh MB50 without using Play-Fi?
No, I mean, that's what it is. So you can with the MB50 is the streamer, right?
Yep.
No, that's just what they're on. It's funny you should mention that, because I just got a Play-Fi piece in yesterday that I wanted to check out, because I was talking to the guys at Play-Fi at DTS, and I was going, guys, what have you done with your software? Because this really was kind of weak. Oh, no, we've done so much with it, so we're going to send you a piece. So they just literally sent me a piece yesterday that I'm going to play around with this weekend and refamiliarize myself with Play-Fi. I can tell you, I wasn't real impressed with Play-Fi over the last couple of years, and I'm hoping that this is going to be a better unit. I don't know if you've updated yours lately. But you could educate me, maybe not necessarily right this second, but Alan can get me any kind of info with it. What is it doing or not doing that you would like it to do? And I'll do my best to answer that. Some of the platforms obviously are better than others.
Yep. And that's true in anything. So, It doesn't make this unique. All right, we got one last
You guys
question.
do Arlic, don't you? Do you do Arlic?
We have done some.
Oh, I'm sorry, not Arlic, a render. Do you do a
yes,
render?
a render we do, and DCS is a big deal for us too.
Perfect. That's a perfect example, because a render, you use the render software. If you want it to sound the very best, you use the render software, right? And it's really and it really does sound remarkable. It does what they say it does. It's
a great company. Great company. All right, so we're going to do our last little plug before we do our last question here, and just want to make sure that everybody's filling out the feedback form at the bottom for entry into prizes. We've got 6 months of Qobuz we're giving away. Also 4 Qobuz pins, which are not available anymore. Very limited, very, very limited. And then we've got basically Funky Owl's House of Sweet Jams. We've got Eat a Peach, Purple Haze, Strawberry Fields, and Raspberry Beret. We're going to give away 3 or 4 of those. And shall we say, we will not announce those. We will announce the 6 months of Qobuz here at the end of the Q&A, and then the rest of the stuff we'll give away by email. Okay. So, but I do want to give a big shout out to the frontline workers and all the folks that are helping get our food to the stores and kind of keeping us up and running. For those folks at home that are doing your social distancing as you should and paying attention, I've never washed my hands more in my life. I'm doing it now like my mama used to tell me to. And so anyway, it's pretty amazing. But anyway, we're all going to get through this. Prayers, safety, and love to everybody. And if you don't mind, get a little like and follow on our deal. You'll see it on your screen there. And again, if you want to go to HiFi Buy's website, sign up for our newsletter so you'll see what we have going on in the future. I appreciate that very much. David, our last question before we close out here from Audiophile Musings. Any possibility of PDF printable album info that comes with record/CD?
That's happening now. That's actually happening right now. A lot of albums are coming with little thumb drives that have got the album. A lot of times they're in low res, which I don't get. They should be in high res, but they'll give you the actual album on there, and then they give you a lot of content on that. I can't see that ever going backward. I think it will go. I think it will just continue to go forward, because why not? I read that wrong, and I thought you were asking if will there be printable albums from a 3D printer.
3D printing, yeah. I mean, hey,
about that.
Somebody started a new business just now.
Right. Chris.
Oh my gosh. Well, that is awesome. Listen, David, as always, we've known each other a long time. I always love having you around, and love you being at the events. Love seeing you out anytime outside of that. I hope you and your family stay safe and healthy. Same with everybody else out there. Just want to let everybody know that next week we will have Mike Lapfus with HRS. And then we've also got a bunch of other folks coming after that. We really love doing these things. We have found that industry folks are tuned in, as well as customers tuned in, and so it's really a nice mix. So anyway, that is going to be it for HiFi Chats number 4 with David Solomon, Chief Hi-Res Music Evangelist with Qobuz. David, thank you so much for being here. And from HiFi Buys, this is Alan Jones, out.